This week on Africa Weekly, we head to Nigeria, where people are disagreeing over the legacy of a 19th century Fulani Muslim ruler. And then we head to Madagascar, which has been producing African caviar. But first, let's take a look at the stories that made the headlines this week. Hundreds of Shiite Muslims demonstrated in the Nigerian capital, demanding the release of their jailed leader, Ibrahim Zakzaki, one day after clashes with police left several protesters dead. Members of the Islamic Movement of Nigeria, a radical pro-Iranian group, chanted slogans and danced in front of the National Human Rights Commission in Abuja. Zakzaki has been in custody since December 2015, when hundreds of his supporters, including women and children, were killed by security forces, according to rights watchdogs. His detention has led to repeated protests in Abuja and several northern cities.
The government should know that no amount of killing will stop us, except if they are ready to kill all of us, and we are many. And the more they kill us, the more people come down to Abuja. The best thing is for this government to respect itself, respect the law of this land, obey the court that order for the total freedom of Sheikh Zakzaki and allow him go. He's sick. Let him go for medication. This is the best solution on this.
A press conference by Ethiopian journalist and former political prisoner Eskinder Nega was stormed by half a dozen young men brandishing Ethiopian flags, calling him a liar and accusing him of stoking tensions among ethnic groups. Nega says the government is using last month's assassination of high-ranking officials as a pretext to arrest critics.
I mean, the disruption had nothing to do with what I said. It was pre-planned. It was planned. It was planned by the government. These are government people. They were working in tandem with the police.
But protesters said Nega has another agenda.
He appointed himself as caretaker, but he's pitting one tribe against another everywhere, and we are struggling for our country.
At a UN regional conference on combating terrorism in Africa, AU chairperson Moussa Faki called for international mobilisation similar to that seen in Syria and Iraq. UN Secretary-General Antonio Guterres acknowledged that terrorism is on the rise in Africa, adding that it's essential that regional security forces receive adequate funding.
Unfortunately, we are seeing that terrorism is progressing. It started in Mali, it went to Burkina Faso, Niger, and now when we speak with the presidents of Ghana, Benin, Togo and Cote d'Ivoire, they see the terrorism coming to their borders, which means that it's essential that African forces dealing with counterterrorism have the adequate mandate and the adequate financing.
The French Defence Ministry admitted that its missiles had been found on a base used by forces loyal to Libya's Khalifa Haftar, but denied supplying them to rebels, which would be a breach of a UN arms embargo. It said the US-made Javelin missiles, found in a camp south of Tripoli, had been given to French forces operating in the war-torn country, but were defective and were meant to have been destroyed. The admission is potentially embarrassing for France, which has long denied allegations that it is assisting Haftar on the ground while also giving him diplomatic support internationally. Haftar is increasingly seen by his allies, which include Russia and Egypt, as a bulwark against Islamists in Libya, who gained a foothold after the 2011 uprising that ousted dictator Muammar Gaddafi. Mobile internet services have been restored across Sudan following a court order, weeks after ruling generals imposed a blockade in the wake of a brutal crackdown on protesters. Demonstrators were violently dispersed on the 3rd of June by men in military fatigues who stormed a weeks-long protest camp outside army headquarters in Khartoum, where Sudanese had camped out to demand that the generals step down. Armed men shooting and beating protesters in a pre-dawn raid killed dozens of demonstrators and wounded hundreds. Days later, internet on mobile phones and fixed land connections was cut across Sudan, with users saying it was done to prevent further mobilisation of protesters. African nations launched the operational phase of a landmark free trade accord at the African Union Summit in the Nigerian capital, Niamey, creating what leaders hope will be the world's largest free trade area. AU officials announced the launch of 5 operational instruments of the African Continental Free Trade Area, with African nations agreeing to shared rules of origin, the monitoring and elimination of non-tariff barriers, a unified digital payment system, and an African Trade Observatory dashboard. The AU estimates that the agreement, which cuts tariffs between African nations, will lead to a 60% boost in intra-African trade by 2022.
Pilgrims pray in silence in front of Ousmane Dan Fodio's tomb every day. Ousmane Dan Fodio was a 19th century Fulani Muslim ruler. He led a jihad against traditional and tyrannical chiefdoms in northern Nigeria to establish the Sokoto Caliphate.
I have come to visit Ousmane Dan Fodio for the fulfillment of all my wishes, and I hope they will be granted by the grace of God.
He is considered a saint in West Africa. His followers are mostly Fulani breeders who praise his fight against social injustices and seek his support.
I just got married, but before moving in with my husband, I wanted to pray for Ousmane Dan Fodio's blessing and ask him to help all women who are looking for a husband.
Dan Fodio's Islamic State flourished for several decades until the first British settlers arrived in the 20th century. But his legacy is not universally accepted in modern Nigeria. Critics fear that his story acts as a pretext for Muslims seeking to Islamize the country, a fear crystallized by the cycles of violence between Muslim Fulani herders and Christian farmers in central Nigeria, which have killed thousands of people in recent years.
These attacks that are well coordinated seem to have been planned. But who must have been behind these attacks, we tend to wonder. Our suspicion grows as well to suspect even government itself.
The current president of Nigeria, Muhammadu Buhari, is a Fulani Muslim from northern Nigeria. His slowness to condemn violence involving his people has reinforced the stigmatization of Fulani communities.
It's another hectic day in the kitchen at this high-end restaurant in Antananarivo. Locally renowned chef Lalaina Ravalomanana is creating new recipes to take advantage of Madagascar's own caviar, the first to be produced in Africa.
I like mixing caviar with salmon because of its mellow, slightly fatty nature, which doesn't distort the taste of the caviar. I've added an egg on the side. Perfect. I like ingredients which are not too strong, so the caviar is not affected.
It's in this factory, 60 kilometers outside the capital, that the caviar is processed. After the cutting, weighing and rinsing comes the all-important step of salting the caviar, a very delicate task.
You really have to respect the 60-second time limit. If not, the caviar becomes soft because of the salt we've added. If you go over a minute, you might completely ruin the eggs.
This Madagascan caviar is sold for €750 per kilo, 2 to 3 times cheaper than its French equivalent. But the producers say that this doesn't impact the quality.
You can see it's got a nice grey colour. When I smell it, I'm getting fresh butter, and when I taste it, it rolls nicely in the mouth. I think it's good caviar.
The sturgeon fish, imported in fertilised egg form from Russia, are kept in carefully monitored conditions in Lake Manansoa, perched high up at 1,400 metres above sea level.
Our lake has very, very pure water, fed only by rainwater and with no industrial or commercial activities in the surrounding area. We also produce fish food with fresh products from Madagascar, all natural, so the fish are extremely healthy.
At the moment, Madagascan caviar production represents a drop in the ocean, with only 1 tonne produced last year in a world market of 340 tonnes. But the entrepreneurs behind the project are ambitious and hope to expand 5-fold this year.
And finally, Madagascar's fairy tale Africa Cup of Nations story came to an abrupt end on Thursday after Tunisia knocked them out of the quarterfinals 3-0. For Madagascar, it was a bittersweet end to their first taste of taking part in the Africa Cup of Nations tournament. That's all from us at Africa Weekly. Until next week.